Okay, so first, Ask the Agronomist segment. We're really excited to have the Andersons with us on this segment. And joining us is our agronomist from the Andersons, Ben Pease. Ben, wonderful to have you on the podcast today. How's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me, Adam. We're excited to give this a shot and get some questions answered from the audience or from the followers.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, we're definitely going to have Ben on as a full episode to dig into some things about his career and what he does for the Andersons. And when I first met Ben, he actually told me about something that I'd never really heard about in the industry. It was a first for me. So we can't wait to get into your story, and we're excited to have you joining us. So we're actually going to kick it off with a question from AJ Foskey. AJ asked the best resource to help build a spray/fertilizer program. So what do you think, Ben?
There's a lot of good resources out there, but I think first place you might start is look at your own program and what worked last year for you, what didn't work last year for you. Since no one really knows your property like you do, that's always a great starting point. Now that's not a starting point if you're coming into a new position, but if you've been there, look at your failures, look at your successes. This time of year, in most areas of the country, it's a great time to go to these off-season educational events. We've got a couple national ones coming up. Your regional ones are really good, and even the ones that are just hosted by your distributors, they usually bring in some really good speakers. Even if you just gain one or two things from a morning of talks, a lot of the stuff we're going to know. We've been growing grass for years. Nothing's terribly new every once in a while. So you maybe just re-remember something, or you do take away one or two good new things to build into your fertility program. I really like that continuing ed this time of year. Some other good resources are always your sales reps to some degree, but they do usually have your best interest in mind, and they've got some really good agronomic guidance. So they'll have manufacturer catalogs, which have a lot of good resources in them as well. So the catalogs, the manufacturer websites have a lot of blogs and points of information to glean. You can work those into your fertility program. Another thing that I kind of draw people to is online tools. So the Andersons does have a really good one called the Turf Nutrition Tool. Yeah, Syngenta's got Greencast. There's growing degree day trackers that you can subscribe to based on your location. They'll tell you when you should be applying your fungicides and insecticides, things like that. Weather trackers are another really good online tool, of course. Soil temperature is the big thing across most of the U.S. in the springtime, so watch that with any of these resources, or fertility or a spray plan. I like to think of it as we're setting up a roadmap for the year. But the destination, there's many ways to get to the supermarket if you want to go get something for dinner. But you can change those things. You can stick to the same route you've always been doing. When we think of a fertilizer plan or a spray plan, we're looking at week by week or month by month, things of that nature. And it really plays into the time of year. So time of year, what's the stress factor on the grass? Are we in July and it's hot and we've got hundreds of rounds a day, or is it October and we've got a dozen rounds a day and things are cooling down and going to bed? But when you're kind of thinking along that roadmap, what you got to place in there is your control products. So oftentimes you can do your fertility application at the same time as a control product. So you're going out with your spring pre-emergence, can you fit some fertility in with those applications, whether it be foliar or granular. Post emergent stuff can also be tied to a fertility application, and your fungicides, insecticide applications. We can tie those things all together and save some labor time, save some machine time. But specifically, when we think about nitrogen, you want to think about what are the soil temps at the time of your planned application? Is it in the spring and our soil temps are low? Maybe we need to pick a different nitrogen source than we do in July. We've got a few things. We've got soil temp, we've got turf stress, we've got time of year, we've got all those things relate into how the turf growth pattern is emerging. And so that'll tell us how much nitrogen to use, what kind of nitrogen to use. fast release, slow release, things like that. And you can even weave in now, are we going to spray it or are we going to spread it? So, man, you've got 6 plates flying up in the air right now when you're putting this roadmap together, but they're all going to land together, hopefully. And you pick, does it have a control product? Is it liquid? Is it granular? How much are we using? And a lot of that is weather based and time of year based. But a general thing is you want to have a good granular feeding base feeding kind of a thing with, and then you can sprinkle in your foliar applications, through the summer months when maybe stress is higher, using that base nutrition to slow feed, but then you're putting little bits and pieces in on a spray program as necessary. So these roadmaps, you don't want to just adopt a set it and forget it attitude. We can put these things together. We can spend weeks putting these together in the off season, and in a matter of a few days, the whole thing gets changed. So yes, it's good to plan. It's good to, say, I need this in the shed, I need this in the barn, but know that you can't just, set it and walk away. You have to kind of tinker with it as Mother Nature throws wrenches into the gears and tournaments get put on you or events. So don't be afraid to change it up.
If you built that big program, what would be the best way to kind of sell that to your committee or your club?
I think I like to go back to that compartmentalization idea. Sometimes, not all the greens committee members or owners are really tuned into turfgrass. And you just give them this big program. All right, I need 20 pallets of this, 10 of that. This is our general program. They're probably going to go, well, where is this all going? But if you break it off into, all right, for the greens, we're going to need these. And, this is your priority on a golf course. If the greens aren't good, we're going to put, a good chunk of our budget here, as you can see in this compartment, towards greens and maybe tees, approaches. And then here's our fairway bucket, and here's our general grounds bucket. So that's a good way to sell it to them, to kind of break it down, and then they can see, okay, yeah, the superintendent's prioritizing what the golfers are looking at, what they're interacting with for the most part. But I think another thing you can do for a greens committee or an owner is to give them some visuals. So if you go to some of these online tools that we talked about, you can show them growing degree days and teach them why you're applying certain things at certain times. Or if you want to show them how fertilizer works, you can go to the turf nutrition tool and put the products in there, put your location in, put your rates in, and it'll build you this nice, nitrogen release curve. So it shows them, all right, this application is going for 4 to 6 weeks, and then we start the next one, and you can see that they all level off throughout the entire year, going from start to finish. And if you're kind of building that out, you can't really, in that program, you can't indicate, well, here's where each application is with kind of a mark on the graph. You can say, all right, this date's where we're putting out our fertilizer plus grub control, because you don't want your fairways torn up by animals overnight or whatnot. Here's where we're putting out our pre-emerge to get rid of crabgrass, and give it to them that way. So they see, well, the problem is crabgrass or the problem is grubs. Here's the solution, and here's why we need to do it at this time. And I think that pulls it together, the visual nitrogen release graph with, telling them, all right, here's this application for this problem, this one for that. And that kind of gets them away from just a big old list of products or a number at the bottom of the sheet, but here's where each one of these are going, and here's what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. We kind of have to dumb it down a little bit, because even us, when we first get into the industry, a lot of this doesn't make sense. And, these products are expensive. So at the bottom of the piece of paper would be a big number. So yeah, you definitely got to go through it line by line and, explain why these products will work on each property or each specific property. So it makes a lot of sense. Ben, we really appreciate you stopping by today for our first segment to the Ask the Agronomist. Ben will be back next week. If you want to get your questions in, reach out to us or reach out to anybody that works at the Andersons, and they'll get the questions into us.